Hey everyone, I'm looking for some advice because my life's a bit of a mess right now. I'm a 24-year-old guy, married to my 22-year-old wife for almost a year. I work as an engineer, and she's a secretary in an office. We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but I thought we were solid. I guess life had other plans for us. Yesterday was a day I'll never forget. I was driving home from work, and just as I was thinking about how good it would feel to kick back and relax, bam! I got into a minor car accident. It wasn't anything too serious, but it was bad enough. I ended up breaking my arm and getting a couple of nasty bruises. I was more annoyed than anything, but I knew I had to let my wife know what happened. As soon as I got patched up and was heading home with my arm in a cast, my phone rang. It was my buddy, who works in the same office as my wife. Let's call him Mike. Mike sounded weirdly anxious, almost out of breath. He said, "Man, you're not going to believe this, but I just saw your wife through the office window. She was with the boss, and it didn't look like they were just talking." I was stunned. I mean, Mike's a trustworthy guy, but this was my wife we're talking about. I wanted to believe it was just some huge misunderstanding or that Mike was just seeing things. But deep down, something felt off. I didn't know what to think. I tried to tell myself that Mike must have been mistaken, but if he wasn't, I knew I needed more proof before I confronted her. When I got home, I was in a bit of a daze. My wife, let's call her Emily, saw my cast and freaked out. She was all, "Oh my God, what happened? Are you okay?" I could barely look at her. I mumbled something about a car accident and that I was fine. She fussed over me, made me sit down, and got me some painkillers. All the while, I kept thinking about what Mike said. I needed to know if she was cheating on me, but I didn't want to believe it. Emily was always so sweet and caring. This couldn't be real, could it? But if it was, I had to be smart about it. I had to get some concrete evidence. The next morning, I decided to take the day off to recover from my injuries. I told Emily that I'd be staying home, and she seemed relieved. Maybe she was just glad I was okay, or maybe she was worried about something else. I didn't know anymore. After she left for work, I decided to follow her. I know, it sounds creepy, but I needed to see for myself what was going on. I called up Mike and asked him if he could help me out. He agreed without hesitation. Mike said he'd keep an eye on the office and let me know if anything suspicious happened. Around noon, Mike texted me saying, "Dude, she just went into the boss's office. They closed the blinds." My heart sank. I drove over to the office and parked a bit away, hoping to stay out of sight. Mike texted again, "They're still in there." I waited, feeling like the biggest idiot on the planet. My mind was racing with all sorts of horrible thoughts. Finally, after what felt like forever, Mike texted, "They're coming out. You might want to see this." I got out of my car and carefully approached the building. I made sure to stay hidden but close enough to see what was happening. And there they were, Emily and her boss, looking way too close for comfort. He was touching her arm, and she was laughing at something he said. It didn't look innocent at all. I felt like my world was crumbling around me. I snapped a few photos with my phone, my hands shaking the whole time. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, but there it was, right in front of me. I had my proof. I drove back home, my mind a mess. I didn't know how to confront her. Should I wait for her to come home and then show her the photos? Should I call her out right now? I was furious and heartbroken at the same time. When Emily got home that evening, she seemed cheerful, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. She started talking about her day, but I couldn't take it anymore. I interrupted her. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something." She looked at me, concerned. "What's wrong, babe? Is your arm hurting?" I shook my head. "No, it's not that. It's about you and your boss." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" I took a deep breath and pulled out my phone, showing her the photos I took. "Explain this." She stared at the photos, her eyes wide with shock. Then she started crying. "It's not what it looks like, I swear. We were just talking." "Talking? With the blinds closed and him touching you like that?" I shot back, feeling my anger rising. She kept crying, trying to explain, but I couldn't hear her. I was too angry, too hurt. "I trusted you, Emily. How could you do this to me?" She didn't have an answer. She just kept crying, repeating that she was sorry, that it was a mistake. But I couldn't listen. I needed some space to think, to figure out what to do next. I decided to stay with my brother for a while. He's 26 and lives not too far from us. When I told him what happened, he was furious on my behalf. "You need to get a lawyer, man. Protect yourself." He was right. I needed to think about my future, about what this meant for us. We'd only been married for a year, and I couldn't believe it was already falling apart. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs earlier. Over the next few days, I started gathering more evidence. I checked her phone when she wasn't looking, took screenshots of any suspicious messages. I talked to Mike and got him to write a statement about what he saw. I even started looking into our finances, making sure I knew what was what in case things got ugly. Emily kept trying to talk to me, to explain and apologize, but I couldn't deal with her. Every time I saw her, I just felt angry and betrayed. I couldn't look at her without thinking about what she did. I'm at a crossroads now. Part of me wants to forgive her, to believe that it was just a stupid mistake. But another part of me can't get past the betrayal. I'm scared that if I let this go, it'll happen again. And I can't live like that, always wondering if she's being faithful. I'm thinking about getting a divorce, but it's such a huge step. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but I also don't know if I can ever trust her again. I bought our house after we got married, and the thought of losing it in a divorce makes me sick. What do you all think? Is there any way to salvage this, or is it better to cut my losses and move on? I could really use some advice right now. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, back with an update and hoping to get some more advice. After the initial shock of finding out about Emily's possible affair, things have only gotten more complicated. My arm is still in a cast, my body is still sore from the accident, and the emotional pain from the betrayal is almost unbearable. The worst part is, Emily has been acting like nothing happened. She's been trying to apologize, saying it was a misunderstanding, but her behavior tells a different story. A couple of days ago, she casually mentioned that she was going on a vacation. She didn't invite me, didn't even ask if I'd be okay with it. She just said she needed some time to herself and that it was a work thing, probably with her boss. My buddy Mike, the one who originally tipped me off, told me he overheard her talking about it in the office. Apparently she and her boss were planning a trip to some beach resort. He didn't catch the exact location, but it sounded pretty romantic. Great. Just what I needed. I was in no shape to confront her again. Physically, I was still recovering from the accident. The cast on my arm was a constant reminder of my bad luck, and my bruises still ached. Emotionally, I was a wreck. I could barely think straight, let alone have another heated conversation. So I decided to play it cool and gather more evidence while she was away. Mike agreed to help me out. He started asking around the office, subtly questioning Emily's colleagues. I needed more proof before I could do anything drastic, like file for divorce or take legal action. I couldn't just rely on my gut feeling and a few photos. I needed concrete evidence. Mike's first target was Emily's close friend at work, Lisa. Lisa was always friendly and chatty, the type who loves office gossip. Mike struck up a casual conversation with her during lunch, steering the topic towards vacations. Lisa mentioned that she wished she could go on a vacation like Emily, who was lucky to have such a generous boss. Mike played dumb, asking for details. Lisa, eager to share the latest scoop, told him about the trip. Emily's boss is taking her to this fancy beach resort, she said. Can you believe it? She must be doing something right to get such a reward. Next, Mike talked to another colleague, Tom. Tom was more reserved but had a good sense of what was happening around the office. Mike asked if he'd noticed anything strange about Emily and her boss. Tom hesitated but eventually opened up. I did see them getting pretty close, he admitted. They've been having a lot of private meetings lately. More than usual, if you ask me. With this information, I felt a bit more confident about my suspicions, but it wasn't enough. I needed something concrete, like messages or emails. Mike suggested I check Emily's computer at home. She often left it unlocked, trusting that I wouldn't snoop. So one evening while she was packing for her trip, I took my chance. I waited until she was in the shower, then quickly accessed her laptop. My heart was pounding and my hands were shaking. I felt like a criminal, but I had to know the truth. I went through her emails and found a chain of messages between her and her boss. They talked about the trip, making plans, and even shared some flirty banter. My stomach turned. The next morning, Emily left for her trip. She kissed me goodbye, acting like everything was normal. I felt sick. As soon as she was gone, I called Mike and told him what I found. He agreed that it was time to take the next step. We needed to gather as much evidence as possible while she was away. Mike continued his investigation at the office, questioning more colleagues. He talked to Janet, an older woman who had been with the company for years. Janet was wise and observant, not one to spread rumors lightly. When Mike asked her about Emily, she sighed and said, "I've seen this kind of thing before. It's not good. They're definitely more than just colleagues." Meanwhile, I contacted a lawyer. I explained the situation and showed him the photos and emails I had collected. He advised me to keep gathering evidence and to prepare for a potential court battle. He explained that proving infidelity could help me in the divorce, and possibly with keeping the house. I didn't tell Emily's parents about what was going on. They were good people, and I didn't want to drag them into this mess until I had more proof. But I knew I couldn't keep it from them forever. Once Emily returned from her trip, I'd have to face them and tell them everything. The days dragged on, each one feeling like an eternity. I tried to keep myself busy, focusing on my recovery and preparing for the confrontation that was coming. My brother was a huge help, offering support and keeping me company. He reminded me that I wasn't alone in this, even though it felt that way. Finally, the day came when Emily returned from her vacation. She walked in, all smiles and tan lines, acting like everything was fine. I couldn't stand to look at her. She tried to hug me, but I pulled away. "We need to talk," I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. She looked confused, maybe even a little scared. "What's wrong?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I know about the trip, Emily. I know about you and your boss." Her face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I showed her the emails I found, the photos I took, and the statements from her colleagues. She started crying, trying to explain, but I couldn't listen. "I trusted you, Emily. How could you do this to me?" She kept crying, saying it was a mistake, that she never meant to hurt me. But I couldn't believe her. The betrayal was too deep, too raw. I decided it was time to tell her parents. They deserved to know what their daughter had done, and I needed their support. I called them over and explained everything, showing them the evidence I had collected. They were shocked, heartbroken, and didn't know what to say. Emily's father looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, son. I don't know what to say. This isn't the daughter we raised." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I know. I don't know what happened to her." With her parents now aware of the situation, I felt a bit more supported, but I knew the hardest part was still ahead. I needed to take this to court, to make sure I could keep the house and move on with my life. My lawyer assured me that with the evidence I had a strong case. The next few days were a blur of meetings with my lawyer, gathering more evidence, and trying to keep myself together. Emily stayed with her parents, giving me some space. I knew it wasn't over yet, but at least I had a plan. Thanks for listening, everyone. Any advice on how to handle the upcoming court battle or how to deal with the emotional fallout would be greatly appreciated. This is the toughest thing I've ever gone through, and I could use all the support I can get. Hey everyone, I just wanted to start by saying thank you. The support and advice I've received from all of you have been incredibly helpful during this rough time. Reading your comments and knowing that I'm not alone has given me the strength to keep pushing forward. So thank you all for that. After a lot of thinking and gathering evidence, I realized that the only way to truly move on was to get a divorce. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. I had to protect myself and my future, and staying in this toxic situation wasn't going to help anyone. I decided to take legal action and divorce Emily through the court. I told Emily about my decision. I could see the shock and pain in her eyes, but I had to stay strong. "Emily, we need to get a divorce," I said firmly. "I've already filed the papers and the court date is set for 10 days from now." She started crying, pleading with me to reconsider, saying we could work things out, but I had made up my mind. I couldn't live with the constant doubt and betrayal. "This is the only way," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We both need to move on." Finding a good lawyer was crucial. I needed someone who could help me navigate this mess and make sure I didn't lose everything I'd worked so hard for. After a few consultations, I found an excellent attorney named Karen. She was sharp, experienced, and confident that we could win this case. Karen and I spent hours going over all the evidence I'd collected. The photos, emails, and statements from Emily's colleagues painted a clear picture of her infidelity. We were determined to make sure I could keep the house. "We've got a strong case," Karen said, reassuring me. "We'll make sure the court sees the truth." Since writing my last message, a few things have changed. First, I'm happy to report that my condition has improved significantly. The cast on my arm was finally removed, and I've started physical therapy to regain strength and mobility. It feels good to have some of my freedom back, and my body is healing well. Emotionally, I'm doing a bit better too. Don't get me wrong, it still hurts like hell, but there's a sense of relief knowing that I'm taking steps to reclaim my life. My soul feels lighter, and I'm starting to see a glimmer of hope for the future. But then, something unexpected happened. Emily's boss, or should I say her lover, showed up at my house. I didn't know what he wanted, but I wasn't in the mood for any more drama. When I opened the door, he was standing there with a smug look on his face. "We need to talk," he said, pushing his way inside before I could respond. I followed him into the living room, already feeling my anger rising. "What do you want?" I demanded. He looked at me with a mixture of disdain and arrogance. "I love her," he said bluntly. "Emily and I are in love, and you're just making her miserable. Why can't you just let her go?" His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I knew about the affair, but hearing him say it so casually made it feel even more real. "You have no idea what you're talking about," I snapped. "You don't know anything about our relationship." He smirked, clearly enjoying my reaction. "I know enough. She deserves to be happy, and she's not happy with you." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, my fists clenched at my sides. "Get out of my house," I growled. "Now." He didn't move. Instead, he stepped closer, his face inches from mine. "Or what? You're going to hit me? Go ahead. Give me a reason to call the cops." I wanted to punch him so badly, but I knew that's what he wanted. Instead, I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "Leave," I said through gritted teeth, "or I will call the cops." He stared at me for a moment, then finally backed off. "You're going to regret this," he said as he walked towards the door. "I have a great lawyer, and I'll make sure you lose everything." I didn't believe him. He might think he's untouchable, but I knew the truth. We had the evidence, and I had Karen on my side. We were ready for whatever he tried to throw at us. After he left, I sat down, my hands shaking with adrenaline and anger. I couldn't believe the nerve of that guy, coming into my home and trying to intimidate me. But his visit only strengthened my resolve. I knew what I had to do, and I wasn't going to let him or Emily stand in my way. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Karen and I went over every detail of our case, making sure we had everything we needed for the court hearing. I was determined to win, not just for myself, but to show Emily and her boss that they couldn't just walk all over me. Emily tried to reach out a few times, sending messages and calling, but I ignored her. I couldn't deal with her lies and excuses anymore. My focus was on the court case and on moving forward with my life. As the court date approached, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. This was it, the moment of truth. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I was ready to fight for what was mine. I couldn't have gotten this far without the support of my family, friends, and all of you here. Your encouragement and advice have been a lifeline for me. So thank you again for being there. I'll keep you posted on how things go in court. Hey everyone, today was the big day. The trial ended just a couple of hours ago, and I'm still trying to process everything that happened. I promised I'd keep you all updated, so here's how it all went down. In the days leading up to the trial, I was a bundle of nerves. Karen, my lawyer, was a rock throughout the entire process. We went over every piece of evidence, rehearsed my testimony, and made sure we had all our bases covered. Karen's confidence was reassuring, but I couldn't help but feel anxious about the outcome. My family rallied around me like never before. My brother, who has always had my back, took time off work to be there for me. My parents were a pillar of support, constantly checking in and making sure I had everything I needed. Even my in-laws, Emily's parents, sided with me. They were heartbroken by their daughter's actions, but determined to see justice served. The morning of the trial, my parents, brother, and a few close friends joined me at my place for breakfast. We talked, laughed, and tried to keep things lighthearted to calm my nerves. My dad gave me a pep talk, reminding me that I was doing the right thing and that justice was on my side. It felt good to have them there, supporting me and lifting my spirits. When we arrived at the courthouse, Karen met us outside. She gave us a final rundown of what to expect and reassured me that we were well prepared. We walked into the courtroom, and I felt a surge of determination. This was it. I was ready to face whatever came my way. The courtroom was intimidating, with its high ceilings and stern-looking judge presiding over the proceedings. Emily was already there, sitting with her lover. He had the same smug look on his face, but I could see the tension in Emily's eyes. She looked scared, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for the woman I once loved. The trial began with Karen presenting our case. She laid out the evidence clearly and confidently, showing the judge the photos, emails, and statements from Emily's colleagues. It was compelling stuff, and I could see the judge taking it all in. Emily's lawyer tried to paint a different picture, claiming that the relationship with her boss was purely professional and that the photos were taken out of context. But the evidence was too strong. When it was my turn to testify, I spoke from the heart. I told the judge about the accident, the suspicions, and the devastating moment when I discovered the truth. I didn't hold back. I needed the court to understand the depth of the betrayal and the impact it had on my life. Karen cross-examined Emily, and it was brutal. She asked pointed questions about the emails, the private meetings, and the trip they took together. Emily stumbled over her words, her eyes darting around the courtroom, looking for an escape. Her lover tried to intervene, but the judge shut him down, reminding him that he was not the one on trial. As the evidence mounted against her, Emily's demeanor shifted from defiance to desperation. She pleaded with the judge, claiming that it was all a mistake and that she never intended to hurt me. But it was too late. The damage was done, and the truth was out. The judge took a moment to review the evidence and then delivered his verdict. Emily was found guilty of infidelity, and the court ruled in my favor. I would keep the house and the majority of our shared assets. The relief that washed over me was indescribable. Justice had been served. As we left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. My family and friends were there, cheering me on and celebrating the victory. But the mood was bittersweet. Emily's parents were devastated, and I could see the pain in their eyes. They approached me, apologizing for their daughter's actions and thanking me for handling the situation with dignity. I assured them that I didn't hold them responsible and that I hoped we could all move forward from this. Emily's lover stood by her side, looking furious. He glared at me, muttering something under his breath about how I'd regret this. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I had won. He was nothing but a coward who preyed on a vulnerable woman, and he wasn't worth my time. After the trial, Emily and her lover left together. I watched them go, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. They were headed in an unknown direction, and I knew I didn't want to hear anything more about them. They were no longer my concern. As I stood outside the courthouse with my family, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was over, and it was time to start a new one. I had been through hell and back, but I had come out stronger. I knew there would still be tough days ahead, but I was ready to face them. Thanks again for all your support, everyone. You've been there for me through this entire ordeal, and I couldn't have done it without you. I'll keep you posted on what comes next. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going. It's been 6 months since the trial, and I can honestly say I feel better than I have in a long time. Life has changed a lot, and I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. First off, I'm still living in my house. It's strange sometimes, being here without Emily, but it's also been healing. I've redecorated a bit, trying to make the place feel like mine again. It's amazing how much a fresh coat of paint and some new furniture can change the vibe. I've turned what was once our shared space into something that feels truly my own. Emily and her lover haven't bothered me since the trial. They disappeared into the unknown, and honestly, I'm glad. I don't need their drama in my life. I heard through the grapevine that they moved to another city, but I haven't kept tabs on them. It's not worth my time or energy. One thing I discovered after the dust settled was that Emily had been taking money from our accounts without asking. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was enough to sting. At first, I was furious, feeling betrayed all over again. But then I realized it wasn't worth holding on to that anger. What's done is done, and I've moved past it. The important thing is that part of my life is over, and I'm in control of my finances now. Getting back to work was a big step for me. During the last week before the trial, I barely had the time or energy to focus on my job. But once everything was settled, I knew I needed to dive back into my routine. Work has been a great distraction and a way to channel my energy into something productive. My colleagues have been supportive, and it feels good to be part of a team again. Looking back, I realize how much I let Emily into my life when I was young and naive. I thought we had something special, and I trusted her completely. Now I understand that people can change, and sometimes they'll let you down. It's a hard lesson to learn, but it's an important one. I've become more cautious, especially when it comes to trusting women. It's not about holding a grudge or being bitter. It's about protecting myself and learning from my experiences. One thing I've come to understand through all of this is the importance of family and friends. They've been my rock, my support system, and my reason for pushing through. If there's one piece of advice I can give to anyone going through something similar, it's to trust your loved ones. They'll be there for you when everything else falls apart. I'm incredibly grateful for my family and friends. They've shown me what true loyalty and support look like. During these past 6 months, I've also taken time to focus on myself. I've picked up some new hobbies like hiking and painting. These activities have been therapeutic, giving me a chance to clear my mind and find some peace. It's amazing how a walk in the woods or a couple of hours with a paintbrush can help you process emotions and start to heal. I've also started seeing a therapist. At first, I was hesitant, thinking I could handle everything on my own. But talking to someone who understands and can provide guidance has been incredibly beneficial. Therapy has helped me work through my feelings of betrayal and anger, and it's given me tools to move forward in a healthier way. Socially, I've been reconnecting with old friends and making new ones. It's been a while since I've allowed myself to just have fun and enjoy life. I've gone out more, attended social events, and even started dating a little. I'm taking things slow, not rushing into anything serious. It's about getting to know people and finding out what makes me happy. One of the most important lessons I've learned is to trust myself. I spent so much time doubting my instincts and second-guessing my decisions. But through this journey, I've realized that I'm stronger and more resilient than I ever thought. I've learned to listen to my gut and stand up for myself. It's a liberating feeling, knowing that I can handle whatever life throws at me. I want to take a moment to address all of you who have been following my story. Your support and advice have been invaluable. You've helped me see things from different perspectives, and your encouragement has kept me going. For anyone out there who might be going through something similar, know that you're not alone. It's tough, but you'll get through it. Lean on your loved ones, trust your instincts, and take things one day at a time. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the future. I've set some goals for myself, both personally and professionally. I want to advance in my career, maybe even start my own business someday. I'm also planning to travel more, see new places, and experience new things. There's a whole world out there, and I'm ready to explore it. In terms of relationships, I'm open to the idea of finding love again, but I'm in no rush. I've learned that it's okay to be on my own, and that happiness doesn't depend on having a partner. For now, I'm focusing on building a life that I love and that I'm proud of. If someone comes along who complements that life, great. If not, that's okay too. To anyone reading this who might be struggling with trust issues or dealing with betrayal, remember that healing takes time. It's not a linear process, and there will be ups and downs. Be patient with yourself and allow yourself to feel whatever emotions come up. It's all part of the journey. I'm grateful for where I am today. It hasn't been easy, but I've grown a lot over these past 6 months. I've rediscovered my strength, learned to trust myself, and found peace in being alone. Life has a way of surprising you, and I'm excited to see what comes next. So that's my story. It's been a wild ride, but I'm finally in a good place. Thank you all for being there for me, for your support, and for your kind words. I'll keep moving forward, taking things one day at a time, and living my life to the fullest. Take care, everyone. Remember to trust your loved ones, trust yourself, and never be afraid to start over. Life is too short to be anything but happy.